And here is Tanner Bibee, right-handed pitching prospect in the Cleveland Guardians organization. Tanner, thank you so much for taking the time, man, and congratulations on an absolutely dominant season this year.
Yeah, thank you, man. Of course. I'm excited for this podcast. I'm excited, like watching you guys, like listening to you guys on TikTok and stuff. So
Dude, it's been a whirlwind on our end, and to start to hear from players, I appreciated you reaching out to us, and we had you on the top 100 list. I don't know if you saw that prior to when you reached out, because it was like right around a day or two apart, where
really,
you were kind enough to reach out and send us a message. I was like, oh, I wonder if he saw that he was on our top 100 prospect list, because we had you well inside of it. I put a lot of time into it every year. Watch as much video as possible, analyze as much data as possible, and it's pretty hard to deny what you did this year and what you have arsenal wise and just everything that you have going for you on the bump. We're going to unpack a lot of that, but I kind of want to just start with what worked for you this year. I mean, you were able to do so many impressive things. You start in high A, you finish in double A, you got better as the year went on, a 1.83 ERA in 73 and 2/3 innings in double A. What really clicked for you this season?
I think just figuring out how to move with my body. I think having to like kind of hone in pitch profiles, like whether it's like separating breaking balls, making my fastball ride a little more. I think all that was kind of since I got drafted in 2021, they didn't send us out, most of us out and do anything. So we just stayed in Arizona the entire rest of the year, and I kind of stayed there for most of the off season. And then once I kind of hit the year and it kind of all started kind of clicking together after doing it for so long and kind of like really trying to pinpoint those like weaknesses, at least in mine from college and stuff, I think it really just kind of helped me kind of push away and kind of get comfortable, get on a roll, and kind of really like find my stride.
And I mean, what really stands out to me with what you were able to do this year is the strikeouts to walk. So you talk about learning your body and just the moves and being able to repeat your mechanics. 167 strikeouts and 27 walks and 132 and 2/3 innings. Is that something that's always been a part of your game? So you look at what you did at Cal State Fullerton, you put up great numbers there. You didn't walk a ton of guys there either, but the strikeout bump is something that, is just very eye-opening. The stuff ticked up as well, as it does for so many guys. But can you talk to that point a little bit of, how the stuff ticked up for you and how were you able to maintain that command and really be able to leverage that into a ton more strikeouts without coming at the expense of your fantastic command?
Yeah, so me, I hate walking people, and like not walking people has been like a very important thing for me because like usually me and like my teammates this last year have always joked about it. It's like you can give up hits or you can walk people, like you can't really do both. So it's like, and I'd rather like make them beat me than like beat myself because that's like when I really get pissed off is when I start walking a ton of people and then it ends up like imploding. And but I think me not walking people, me throwing strikes, and me having kind of that kind of like skill, I think really helped me with my stuff, kind of just trusting that it's gonna be around the zone. And when my stuff ticked up, I think that it just kind of helped everything else.
So how did that stuff tick up? Was it the weight room? Was it efficiency of the mechanics? Was it a little bit of everything? Because at least as far as I was able to monitor, it seemed like your velo went up at least 3 miles per hour this season on the fastball. Is that about right? That's what I had in the write up on our top 100 list there. And I mean,
All right.
you touched 99 this year, which is pretty impressive given that you used to operate more in the low 90s, right? And so how are you able to get that big time bump in your velo? And what would you say you could kind of attribute that to?
I think it's a little bit of everything. I think in the weight room it was training a lot of like speed stuff, like whether it's like speed squat, like speed deadlift, whatever it is, like jumps. I think cleaning up my mechanics was huge, whether it was a profile or just moving more efficiently. I think cleaning up my mechanics kind of helped my arm get like not as sore, not as like the next day I kind of recovered a lot better. Um, and I think that all those things kind of mixed together, along with like good coaching and good like scouting reports and stuff like that, I think really just like made it easy for me to keep ticking up and keep doing all this stuff because I think that when I was kind of dealing with a lot of stuff, whether it's like my stuff's not great, like scouting reports aren't great. I think that like when you have the resources and like you can have access to all of them and they're all really solid, I think it's really helped really easy on the mind. It's a lot easier to focus on recovery, on the body, stuff like that, and competing. So I think it's a little bit of everything, honestly.
Talk about the resources. I mean, it's no secret that the Guardians do a fantastic job at developing pitching talent. And you're the latest example of someone who, it's not like you were a late round pick, but fifth round for what you just did. We do a redraft. I don't think a lot of teams are letting you slide to the fifth round based on what you just showed in the upper minors, right? So what can you speak to on the Guardians side? I know it's a little bit of what you just said, but landing in this organization, being able to take your game to the next level. And I'm sure you'll say that you always saw that this was in you. And I think the Guardians would say that they saw this in you, and that's why they took you in the fifth round. But what in this organization, I know you haven't been in another org, so it's hard to compare, but just as far as you've been able to kind of just soak in your 1 year really so far as an active player in the org,
Yeah.
what can you really attest to the organization's ability to just develop arms and continue to get the most out of their pitching talent?
I mean, just from hearing other stories about other orgs, I think it's very apparent that like the Guardians are super good at what they do. They really care about the development. They obviously do care about winning, but their main goal is obviously for the big league club to win a World Series. And I think that starts from like the lower levels all the way up and it goes all the way up the chain. I think everyone there, whether it's like the spring training complex, whether it's all the affiliates, I think that all of them are so bought into that one goal and kind of developing like everyone and kind of it's really like player led where whether it's like they want to attack like the players want to attack this, they're like, okay, let's dig into this, let's see what they need to do. And I think that all that and like kind of like the everyone buying into that one goal, I think it's really easy to like healthily compete, and I think it's really easy to like really develop, and because everyone's on the same page.
And how about just being surrounded by the amount of talented pitchers, whether, it's in big league spring training with some of the big league guys that they have, which there are so many really good pitchers at that level, but also littered throughout the system, a lot of talented guys as well. I always like to ask because I'm just out in the Arizona Fall League and I'm seeing a bunch of different players from different organizations hanging out, during batting practice, bouncing things off of each other, talking, hitting. When you're in an organization with a lot of other pitchers who I'm sure you respect and appreciate their craft and their ability, how much do you guys just talk about pitching and talk shop with some of the guys around you? Because I mean, your rotation alone in Akron was extremely talented.
Yeah, I mean, even in Lake County and Akron, it was like every day you're seeing someone that's like really good throw every single day. And I think all coming from like the same kind of background. Like most of us were a lot of like college pitchers, other than like Joey Cantillo. I think he was probably the only one that I played with that wasn't a college arm. So we kind of all have the same thought process. But I mean, coming from where I went to Fullerton in the Big West, I mean, there's a very different kind of pitching and different kind of style and thoughts and processes through SEC, through um like the Sun Belt, all those kind of like teams and like all those different conferences and like the way people have learned and the way like skills and because everyone has their own unique skills. And I think that all those different thought processes and what everyone's trying to get to, I think it's really cool because everyone has their own stuff and everyone's super cool and everyone wants each other to do well. And it's been really helpful.
So you come from the Big West Conference, Cal State Fullerton, which is a pipeline for big league talent. And if I think most people know that at this point, but if you don't, some examples on the offensive side, and these are active players. You got Justin Turner, Kurt Suzuki, Matt Chapman, Chris Davis, Michael Lorenzen, obviously on both sides, since he wanted to be a two-way, he's more of a pitcher. You got Dylan Floro as well, and several others. I mean, this is a very, very, very good program, and as are a lot in both that conference and on the West Coast. What can you speak to in your experience at Cal State Fullerton, just being able to develop there and I guess maybe the pedigree of just the talent that has continued to come out there? Was that one of your very obvious first options in your recruiting process? Did you not end up thinking you thrive as much there as you did? What was your process to getting there? And then what can you speak to of, what you got out of your time at Cal State?
Yeah, so me and my parents always went to Cal State Fullerton games. I would always go to like whether it's like regular season, postseason games. We always went there because it was pretty close to my house, and it was always really good baseball. And I always kind of really wanted to go there. When I ended up being there, like the players there were amazing. They were like, it really forms a brotherhood, and it really shows that how much, like, why the culture has been so good for so long there. And because the culture has carried on from the 70s when it kind of all started to now. Um, and I think the coach there now, Jason Dietrich, is the absolute man. He recruited me to Fullerton, and he coached Gavin Williams at ECU, and he is like the absolute man. And he is like one, like, he's never actually coached me, but I've only heard good things, and he was one of the big reasons why I went to Cal State Fullerton. And I think me going through Fullerton and kind of maturing and developing through them was very needed for me to get where I am now.
So you go through those 3.5 seasons there, right? Because 2020, you only make 4 starts due to the COVID canceled season. Your freshman year, you made 7 starts, 19 appearances. So a little bit of both, but saw a lot of action. How important was it to get that opportunity your freshman year to really be able to get out there and throw 56 innings? You do build on that too in that sophomore year, getting more innings under your belt, but a lot more responsibility. And then all that to, just get to your senior year where you pitch your way into being a top 5 round pick. What was that progression like as a freshman all the way to a senior, I guess, or redshirt junior, however you want to call it?
Yeah. I mean, it was really different. I mean, because all throughout high school, I mean, I was the pretty much a starter the entire time, I would say. And getting to Fullerton, I kind of started off as the number 3, the Sunday guy, and then getting bumped out of the role and kind of being Tuesday bullpen guy. And then by the end of the year, because one of our guys got hurt, I was the Sunday guy at the end of the year. And I think that freshman year was super important to kind of get a taste for the rest of the time and what was kind of expected. And the whole time, I think I developed my routines, developed mentally throughout each year, because each year was so different. Um, had like a lot of carousel of coaches, whether it was pitching side, hitting side, but I think it was really needed because all the players kind of needed to come together, and they needed to develop their own routines, and some swam and some sank. But that's baseball, and I thank God that I swam.
Yeah, I was to say you did swim, and do you think that played a part in your smooth transition into professional baseball? Because when I have guys on, a lot of guys have talked about how you go from, and of course teams are going to help and work with you, but it's a little different when you get to pro ball versus college. You're a little bit more on your own. Developing that routine and everything, was that something that you think helped you make that smooth transition to your first full year in pro baseball?
Yeah, I think 100%. I think because the Guardians are so like player led, like they want you to figure out what you need to work on. I think that throughout Fullerton, like we needed to do the same thing. Like we were trying to figure out like, okay, how do we get better? Like how do we win games? And I think the same thing with the Guardians. Like their Guardians are obviously have way more tech, they're way more advanced. But I think me developing those routines were like crucial to me, like kind of doing what I am now.
And can you walk us through a little bit of your routine on a pitching day? What are you doing? Because what really stands out to me, and I want to dive in a little bit more specifically on how you made that leap from high A to double A, because it floors me on how the numbers just continue to get better. But routine wise, did you stick with that same routine all the way through the season? And can you tell us a little bit about, what goes into the Tanner Bibee preparation on a start day?
So pretty much, I mean, I think my routine stayed pretty similar. I mean, on the start day, I mean, I'm waking up. Um, I don't like doing energy drinks because I'd go way too jittery. I usually do more coffee. I'll go to some local coffee shop, get some coffee. I'll show up to the field pretty early, probably than other guys. I just don't like being like by myself in the apartment. I get kind of bored. So I'll just show up and just sit in the locker room, hang out with the guys until a couple hours before the game. I'll start suiting up. I'll start getting the stretch in, whether it's with the athletic trainer or just by myself in the weight room. And then I'll have the meeting with whoever's catching that day and our pitching coach about the other team, go through the scouting report, and then I'll go out, do a dynamic stretch, go through bands, plyo balls, play catch to the pen, and then to the game.
So you're not the loner pitcher the day that you're ready to go. Like you're okay talking to people and stuff like that. I know I've heard a lot of stories about pitchers that tend to just stick to themselves on that 5th day.
Yeah, so I mean, well, our mental coach at Fullerton, his name's Brian Kane. He always talked about like the funnel of focus, And like when it gets close, like the funnel's like this, and like I'm not super focused like early in the day. And like as it gets closer and closer and closer, like I get more and more focused. But I'm not really like the guy who's like, don't talk to me. I don't want
Yeah.
people you to talk to me. But I usually do get pretty like more focused and less like talkative. But yeah.
So I want to hit on that high A to double A transition. And we're going to go on StreamYard on YouTube, as a lot of the listeners of the podcast know. That's usually something they look out for after these interviews, because it's a lot of fun. And I'm excited to break down your specific arsenal and how that was able to help you get to the numbers that you put up. But high A to double A is a huge jump. I always talk about it from a hitter's perspective, because it is really hard for hitters to make that leap, as pitchers like yourself are just waiting in double A, ready to carve up. And it's still for hitters, or for pitchers, excuse me, extremely tough as well, because you got a lot of hitters, a lot of really talented guys that are either in their second year there or just hit their way through high A. How were you able to get even better at the upper levels there, right? I mean, to make that jump from high A to double A. And again, to remind the listeners of the numbers here, 2.59 ERA in high A, and you go to a 1.83 ERA in double A in more innings. Also, your whip cuts down by almost 0.2, right? You are a 1.06 whip. You go to 0.88 whip at the double A level. What was really working for you to be able to kind of take your game to that next level at the next level?
Yeah, I mean in high A I kind of gotten on like a little roll. I think getting like my first taste of pro ball, obviously. I think staying like very level mentally, I think really helped me. Like not get too up, not get too down. And when I got to double A, I mean obviously there are some butterflies, but when I had like my first couple starts were pretty solid. I kind of gotten that same role, kind of gotten the same routine, and it was kind of nice just to like be just kind of, it was a very seamless transition. I mean, obviously credit to the Guardians for helping me do that, but it was just a very easy transition, whether it was pitching coaches, catchers, other pitchers.
So from your perspective, because when I was writing up, again, this is a fun opportunity where, I'm able to kind of quiz the player himself on the write up and see where I might have been on or maybe a little bit off on the
Okay.
assessment of your arsenal. We'll
Okay.
get into a little bit more on the StreamYard, but for me, what really stood out, I mean, the highest rated pitch that I had for you was the fastball, because the way you were able to command it, the life on it, in the mid 90s with just the ride, you got a lot of swing and miss on it. The command obviously helped that play up, but then I had a really hard time picking from your secondary offerings. I thought all of them were really, really good. Slider above average comfortably. Changeup, you were able to carve guys up with that. I thought you dominated guys with the changeup as well as any pitch. You look at the whiff rates. I mean, it was there, but you used the slider the most. Which pitch would you say is your best out pitch? And, can you add a little bit more to maybe why that is?
It's honestly hard because I've always been a guy who like spun the ball all the time.
Mhm.
And like this, I think it was like my senior year, my last year at Fullerton. I kind of started getting a changeup a little bit, and it's still kind of like a new-ish pitch for me.
Really?
Yeah, like I never threw a changeup ever, like throughout high school until I started when I went to Cape Cod after my sophomore year is when I kind of started finally throwing it, but then I didn't really get a chance to throw it in 2020. Um, and 2021 was kind of the first year I kind of did it. And doing it now, it's like I've always done my slider, and I'm like super comfortable with my slider. My changeup did work really well. Like honestly, I think it just depends on the. I have enough confidence in both those pitches to throw them like in the zone, and I think it just depends on the hitter. Honestly, like
You know how many pitchers are listening to that and they're just like so annoyed? I've talked
probably
to
yeah,
so
I'm
many guys
probably
like,
annoying saying that, but
no, I mean, it's the truth, right? I mean, like
yeah,
so many guys are working so hard to find the changeup grip that works for them, and then try to find, a way to just have a feel for it, right? How
yeah,
often do we see guys that's if he develops a changeup, then he can be this, right? That's always
yeah.
the biggest if. Not only did you have that changeup that you were very comfortable with, you threw it about 15% of the time, but do you know what opponents had OPS wise? Like what they OPS against your changeup this year? Any ballpark idea?
I have no idea.
426. Opponents were 11 for 63 against your changeup this year. So just the reason why I'm mentioning that is that's a pitch you use about 14% of the time. But again, you have a really even split across your secondary stuff. You go to the slider roughly 20%, the curveball around 12% of the time, and then the fastball around 50. Is a changeup a pitch that, if it's relatively new, that you could see maybe developing into an even better pitch than once you start to get to tinker with it a little bit more, since you already have so much comfort with it? Or do you kind of like it as is? Like, are you going to play around with that pitch at all and see if you can, maybe manipulate it even more? Or do you like where it's at right now?
I mean, I hope it gets better. But I mean, I'm gonna see what I can do. I honestly, since the changeup is so new, I don't really know like what particularly to do with it. So I'm gonna, like, when I go back to Arizona, whether it's like spring training or whatever, I'm gonna try to figure some stuff out. And if there's some stuff that can make it better, sweet. And if it stays the same, I'm just gonna need to put it in the zone just as much as I did last year.
So would you just say it's just a natural thing that just rolled out of your hand pretty easily, threw a first strike 68% of the time? Like that just kind of came easily for you? Like, did it ever
I
click? Did something happen? Like, or just you tried it and it worked?
well, I mean, my last year at Fullerton, it wasn't a bad pitch. I did throw it in the zone a decent amount. I think just like throughout the whole time I've been with the Guardians now, I think I've been trying to make it like better. I saw this video on Twitter of I think it was Pitching Ninja. I think it was Trevor Hoffman, and he would like put a ton of pressure on his thumb to try to like get like that rollover like that. So like I try to hold it really soft and I try to put a bunch of pressure on my thumb so it like rolls over. And at that point, it's just like I'm trying not to like almost like hit a righty batter with it. I'm just trying to throw it down the middle and like let it do what it's gonna do.
I'm excited to get into that, again on the live stream, because I want to talk in depth about,
Yeah.
kind of what you're trying to do with each of those pitches. But one last thing to kind of circle back before we wrap up and go over to the live stream for kids that are listening. And I know I even have I've had some DMs from dads that listen that, we're like, oh, I appreciate this and that. I try to tell my son this or this interview because my son came away with this from that. What would you tell? Because this is something I was a guy that dealt with a lot of shoulder issues, right? And they kind of ruined baseball for me at the end. Labrum surgery just made it really difficult. And you have this endless pursuit of velocity. And obviously, more velocity equals, generally speaking, more outs, but above all is command. Everybody wants to throw harder, but there's a lot of ways that you need to go about it to prevent injury and all of those things. What would you tell a freshman in high school that is, hoping to gain some velocity about the best way to go about it? And, what would be your advice to a freshman in high school that is looking to gain velocity on the bump?
There's a couple things. I mean, obviously I didn't start throwing hard until I was pretty much 23 years old right now. So I think our coaches at Fullerton always said that like the best ability is availability. So obviously staying healthy. I think that doing like doing your post work is just as important as warming up and doing that kind of stuff. Like if you're going high intent on a mound, like you need to be doing stuff after so your body can help prepare itself. I think that was one of the things that I tried to really stay on top of this year is really doing a lot of post stuff and like kind of developing, like I said, developing the routine to get there. Um, and obviously hydrating and sleeping. I mean, it makes way more of a difference than you would think. I think those three things, like hydrate, sleep, and like getting your recovery working and finding out what works for you, I think is like, and letting your training kind of come to the surface when you're in the game, so you don't have to think about anything else. I think if your training is good, you can hydrate, you can sleep, and you get the correct recovery work in for you, whether it's like strength after or whether it's like loosening up your shoulder, whatever it is. I think those are kind of the main things to help you out.
I love it. I love it. And the last question I'll ask is, after such a fantastic season and, a chance to push your way towards the big leagues next year, right? With a good deal of success and double under your belt and, potentially either going straight to triple or into triple early next year. What's your big focus? I know you probably want to take it one day at a time. That's usually the answer I get. But what's your focus as a pitcher to continue to build on what you were able to do last year?
I think just my goals last year, I think keep doing them. I mean, obviously filling up the zone is a really important thing, especially when you start getting in AAA and the majors with like the different balls and stuff. But I think The goals that I had last year, I mean, I don't think I like really like perfected them yet. They're not necessarily like super natural to me yet. So I think that if I can keep doing what I'm doing with that and kind of working towards what I need to do with those goals, I think it's gonna really help me. And I think those are the main things I've wanted to keep working on.
Can you speak to some of those goals?
The fastball ride,
Hell yeah.
separating the two breaking balls, so they don't blend, were kind of the two things, and just saying, doing all I can to stay healthy.
And what's the best way? Is that something that you're going throwing pens with like the Rapsodo feedback and just continuing to tinker? Like, how do you continue to find that fastball ride and separate the curveballs or separate the breaking balls? Excuse me. Like, how is that something that you can actively continue to work on?
It took a really long time. The separating the curveball and slider, obviously is still a work in progress. The fastball ride was very mechanical. From coming in, I knew my fastball ride wasn't great, and from I think start two of the year this year when I was in high A, my pitching coach found something that was little and kind of helped me with that. And then when I got into double A, kind of the communication was good with between the pitching coaches and the org and me, and it was just kept working on to get the ride keep going. And by the end of the year, it was a lot better than the beginning, and that's all you can really ask for. So
I mean, that's for sure. And that probably played a little bit of a part in that double A dominance as well. We're going to take a look at some of that double A dominance now in a few minutes and hop over to that live stream. This episode's already going to be out. So actually, let me rephrase that. The YouTube video will already be out by the time people are listening to this. So I'll have that link in the description and you can go check that out on YouTube as well. Tanner, talk to you in a few minutes. We'll go show some video and go break it down. Thanks so much for taking the time, man. It was so awesome talking to you. Congratulations on a phenomenal season and excited to see you follow that up in 2023.
yeah, of course. Thank you so much.